Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
Coming up on the First Take podcast, it's decision day for the NBA on Donald Sterling. Meanwhile, will Clippers fans boycott tonight's game? And will the team put aside the distractions and beat the Warriors? All that and more coming up on the First Take podcast, which starts right now.
He has to go. He cannot be an owner in the NBA.
He is now the definition of anti-black owner you do not want. When I read the quotes that he said, they smack of a plantation owner in the South in the early 1800s.
I think Donald Sterling should be forced to sell to an African American. Maybe somebody like Magic Johnson.
The cause would become greater than my championship goal for that moment.
Don't ask young black men to hear that and then say, you know what, we can't worry about that, we gotta play. Oh, no. I'm rolling to L.A. tomorrow.
Yep.
I'm gonna be there. It ain't on us. We doing our job. Now what you gonna do, fans?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to First Take. Kerry Champion with Skip Bayless. Stephen A, as mentioned there in that clip, is in Los Angeles. How are you this morning?
I'm doing all right. How y'all doing?
Stephen A. Smith, it was an honor and a privilege to do this show with you yesterday, and I look greatly forward to doing today's show with you.
Feelings mutual, bro.
All right, coming up on the show today, there will be a 2 p.m. Eastern NBA press conference where Adam Silver is expected to make an announcement about embattled Clipper owner Donald Sterling. And that's where we begin. Game 5 tonight at the Staples Center. Instead of the focus actually being on the series that's now tied up, it's more about who or whom will not show up tonight. And when I say that, I'm referring to on the court as well as in the stands. Let's listen.
Going home now, and usually that would mean we're going to our safe haven. And I don't even know if that's true, to be honest.
If I was a fan, I wouldn't show up to the Staples Center. I'd prefer the Clippers and the Warriors playing in the Staples Center with no fans. That made a statement that speaks volumes. And it could be on TV, and we can treat it like it's normal. But I think it would make a heck of a statement saying you won't tolerate what was allegedly said.
That was Mark Jackson, Golden State head coach, saying he'd actually like to see the fans not show up tonight. Stephen A, you're in Los Angeles. What do you expect to see at Staples tonight?
Well, Kerry, excuse me. First of all, I could barely hear you, just so you know. We're having technical difficulties, so I could barely hear you and Skip. But I'm assuming that you're asking what do I expect tonight at this game. I think it's going to be mixed. I think they're going to be a bevy of people that are going to come out and be incredibly supportive of the Clippers because they're going to hold the mentality that Doc Rivers wish his players have. And that is, don't let this man steal your joy. Don't let him disrupt or interrupt the pursuit of a championship that you've worked all your lives for. Keep in mind what the bigger goal is and understand what you're shooting for. There are certain things that are beyond our control. We've got to play the games, and we're going to play the games we're going to play to win. And I think you're going to see the fans, a lot of them, harbor the same mentality. However, I do think you will see some dissidence amongst the crowd. I think you'll see people wearing all black or, making their figurative statements. I think you'll see people with signs. I think you'll see people outside of the Staples Center protesting. I think you'll see all of that because they'll want to make sure that their voices are heard as it pertains to how offended they've been. And essentially what it comes down to, Skip, is that I think you're going to see people along the lines that Doc Rivers and Mark Jackson have already established. They're on two opposite ends of the spectrum. Doc Rivers wants people to come out to the games and support the team for obvious reasons. Mark Jackson has the mentality that, he wouldn't blame them if for this one game they elected not to do so. Not just Clipper fans, but Warrior fans, because we have to recognize that what Donald Sterling was saying was heinous, it was racist, it was uncalled for, it was beyond the pale and entirely unacceptable. And he wasn't saying it towards one person. He was saying it about black people. And that's the kind of message that Mark Jackson wants to make sure resonates. So obviously he feels a bit differently than Doc Rivers, and I think you're going to see the fans divided. Some are going to side with Doc Rivers, some are going to side with Mark Jackson, but ultimately they'll come out and support the Clippers while still finding a way to make sure that their voices are heard.
Can you speak to, Stephen A., what Michael Wilbon said on PTI yesterday about the percentage of black or brown people who do attend Clippers home games?
I definitely think that's accurate. I mean, of all of
it's the highest.
Obviously, I'm
right?
traveling all over the country at NBA arenas. There is no question that when you look at the black populace, I'd say that the Washington Wizards might give them a run for their money in some respects, but by and large, when you talk about a black audience, a black crowd, I definitely think the highest percentage belongs to the Los Angeles Clippers. That is unmistakable.
So, deep down, how do you feel about potentially boycotting tonight, not even showing up tonight?
Who are you talking about?
For the black, I don't know if they're season ticket holders or ticket holders in general, to not show up at all.
Well, I'm torn, to be quite honest with you. If I'm being totally honest, which I always am, I'm torn. On one hand, you don't want Donald Sterling to interrupt your joy. You love the game of basketball. You love this team. You want to come out and support this team, etc. But I sort of side more with Mark Jackson than the Doc Rivers version from this perspective. From this perspective, for one game, I would like to see an emphatic message sent. But let me throw in this caveat, Skip. I would feel more strongly towards Mark Jackson's position if there were no decision coming down by Adam Silver, the commissioner, and the league owners. But because there's a press conference at 2 o'clock, and because we anticipate that a heavy hand is going to be extended, and we're hopeful that Donald Sterling will be dealt with in a very significant way, then that sort of modifies my position a little bit. Like, if Adam Silver comes back and the owners, and there's a press conference today, and they say, you know, we've looked at the NBA constitutional bylaws, you know, like Lester Munson told us on Mike and Mike this morning, which we'll get into a little bit later. And it is clear it is within our jurisdiction to do this. And Donald Sterling will be removed as owner of the Los Angeles Clippers. Then I'm not sure the Mark Jackson position is necessary as much as it would be if that were not the case.
I got you. Okay. I'm going to have to again preface my comments, forgive me for this, by saying, as I did yesterday, in no way, shape, or form can I feel the way you feel or Kerry Champion feels about this issue. So I could be wrong about this. I'm from a distance, but I feel deeply, strongly about this. I do not want to see the L.A. Clippers and their fans tonight do anything that would harm their chances of winning this basketball game. Anything in the way of protests that would distract or drain them of the energy that will be required to win a crucial Game 5. And I'm going to remind you again, I believe this Clipper team has as good a shot as any in the West of not only winning the West, but winning the championship. And they don't want to wake up tomorrow as they fly back to the Bay Area to play Game 6 knowing they're one game from elimination for whatever off-the-court reason would have impacted their ability to win this game tonight. And I'm going to bring you back to where I was yesterday, Stephen A. Smith. To whom does this team belong? Is it just that guy, that racist who signs the checks? Or emotionally, does this team belong to Clippers fans, long-suffering Clippers fans, who have been there through mostly thin as well as right now thick? Does it belong ultimately and realistically to Doc Rivers and Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and those players who have earned the right to play a home Game 5, home court advantage it's called, not disadvantage, advantage, to proceed on a path to win the Clippers' first ever NBA championship? Does it belong to them? I say yes. So I don't want them to do anything in the way of boycott or protest that will mute the energy and the volume tonight. And I'll throw this out. from a white perspective, how do you think, let's just do the hypothetical here. What if a lot of black fans don't show up tonight? How will that make the white fans feel? Would it shame them into feeling guilty about cheering rabidly as they usually would for their Clippers? Would they put, sit on their hands more? Would they mute their cheers? Would it start to turn into home court disadvantage or lack of advantage for the home team? It just might. That, from a distance, again, from my vantage point, that would kill me to watch that happen tonight in the way of big picture protests that I'm wholeheartedly behind, but at the expense of what? And let's do Mark Jackson. Again, is he a proud African American who firmly and powerfully believes in his heritage? There is no doubt about that. He's also an NBA head coach on the hot seat. He's coaching for his job. So he has to have some mixed emotions in delivering the public message of, I think they should boycott. I'm not saying that there's any gamesmanship involved here, but seriously, is there not a part of Mark Jackson that would like to see a boycott just because it would turn down the volume in Staples tonight? I'm just throwing it out there. Wouldn't that be some advantage to Mark's team?
Well, like you did acknowledge that you're just coming from a white perspective.
Sure.
And I respect that. And you're not wrong for what you said. You're not wrong for what you're thinking. But what I would ask you to do is acknowledge, not acknowledge because you certainly do that, but just realize the level of sensitivity that comes along with it from a black man's perspective. To hear what Donald Sterling said, to understand its magnitude, I certainly would never accuse somebody of Mark Jackson's integrity to be thinking about how it would be an advantage for him if black folks elected not to show up to the game when you got something like this. I'm just telling you, you can't find a black man alive, you can't find a black person alive, Skip, that isn't offended by what they heard Donald Sterling said on that tape, because it spoke to subservience. It spoke to black folks literally being perceived as second-class citizens, viewed as second-class citizens. It's essentially, Donald Sterling, the way he was talking, to engage in or to entertain the word slave labor, to look at players in terms of how he looked at players, is not an exercise in hyperbole. And so when something like that has taken place, and it's the kind of thing that has been disseminated to the masses where everybody knows that it's bad enough that you know. It's bad enough that it's not just something that you heard, but everyone knows you heard it. You sort of feel compelled as a black man to take a stance and to take a position. Now, that doesn't make Doc Rivers in any way wrong for the position that he has taken, because what he has endured on a personal level in terms of animus because of his interracial marriage, etc., speaks for itself, and he's qualified to take any position that he wants to and have our support and utmost respect. But that doesn't mean that Mark Jackson doesn't get it either for his position. So we just need to understand that and recognize the fact that if you're the players, no one's asking you not to play. Nobody's asking you not to perform. We're just saying that this situation and this issue transcends the team, transcends the sport, and speaks from a societal perspective that something has to be done, which is why I said, if Adam Silver and the owners indeed go do it, Skip, then the matter has been addressed prior to the game, and then we can modify our thoughts and think differently. But until that time, people going to stand up and say, yo, man, I can't sit idly by and go for this. This is something has to be done. You may be right. You may not want it to be that, but it's just a way that it's a way people are using to highlight the level of disgust that they feel from this whole situation and this insatiable appetite to send a profound message. And maybe we're going the wrong way, and maybe we'll realize that as the game creeps closer. But the emotions of the moment mandate, not dictate, but mandate that something profound needs to be stated.
Okay, so I'm conflicted. And we arrived at an impasse yesterday in our second hour of the show, in which I pretty much threw up my hands and said, I'm out. I don't know here. I'm a little lost because you're telling me that the cause should now transcend the basketball goal of winning the championship.
But I don't believe I'm saying, I understand I get where you're coming from, but I don't believe I'm saying that. I'm saying to you that the cause can't take a back seat to the game.
Okay.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it needs to usurp the game, but it can't take a back seat either. So as Kevin Johnson and everybody else acknowledges, yeah, they want due process, but they also want swift, significantly severe actions too. So, here you are, you want the due process, but at the same time you want them to act quickly and emphatically, and sometimes that conflicts with one another. Well, it's the same principle here. You want the game. You want to support the team. You want them to go out there and ball and pursue the championship, but at the same time you don't want the message that needs to be sent to get lost because of the game. And that's the conflict.
Okay, we're going to discuss this in just a moment, but bottom line for me is I don't think the NBA fans today, the world, the basketball world, the offended fans, the African-American community is going to get exactly what it wants from Commissioner Silver when he speaks, because it wants Silver to say he's out, right? Isn't that where we're heading? This man is out. We have removed him as the owner of the Clippers. I could be wrong, but I don't think we're going to get that handed to us on a silver platter today. I think it's much more complex than that. We're about to discuss it and try to break it down. But so if that's hypothetically where there's going to be dissatisfaction, I think you're saying there needs to be some official sort of boycott tonight, something that is almost a staged boycott. We are all in this together, right?
It could be something along the line, Skip, of the fans showing up to support the team, but at the same time there's a bevy of fans that couldn't get into the game that are outside protesting. You could have both.
Okay.
All right, listen, speaking of boycotting, former Clipper Chauncey Billups said he wouldn't have played. We will discuss that coming up within the hour. But right now, according to TMZ, the NBA is satisfied that it is Donald Sterling's voice on that recording, and one of the most outspoken owners in the league, and of course I'm talking about Mark Cuban, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, said the league would be better without Sterling in it, but it's simply just not that easy.
What Donald's done within the confines of the NBA, Adam will deal with that within the Constitution of the NBA, and I'm all for him taking those steps. But in terms of should we kick him out, and go outside of the Constitution, should we start taking steps to really condemn people for what they say in the privacy of their own home? It just happens to be recorded. That's a slippery slope I don't want to get on.
Well, there you go. The privacy, something in your own home, a slippery slope. Well said by Mark Cuban. Stephen A., yesterday I asked you this question about a punishment for Donald Sterling, and you said in your heart of hearts you thought perhaps a fine and a suspension. More on your thoughts about a punishment for Donald Sterling.
Well, I've always thought that Donald Sterling should be gone the second I heard these tapes. What I commented about that in terms of what I thought would come down the pike is what ultimately would be implemented by the commissioner and the league's board of governors, consisting of the other 29 owners in the NBA, meaning the fine along with the suspension that could be of an indefinite variety. But listening to Lester Munson on Mike and Mike this morning, and it's all right to go there now, right, Skip? In terms of bringing up Lester Munson?
Sure.
All right, so Lester Munson reading the NBA constitutional bylaws and talking about it on Mike and Mike this morning, I knew about the $1 million fine. I knew that there could be an indefinite suspension. What I didn't know about was the $2.5 million fine that could be imposed, the confiscation of draft picks. I knew about that, but I also didn't know about the possibility that he could be stripped of ownership in some capacity, and that the commissioner, Adam Silver, has an incredible amount of latitude that we were not aware that he had. And so as a result of that, that changes things because, again, it strips the NBA and its league board of governors of any excuse in my mind to avoid doing what needs to be done. And that's making sure they rid themselves of Donald Sterling. Now, what Mark Cuban had to say, I think that we have to respect his position. Mark Cuban is a brilliant man, and you know what? He wouldn't be found on something like this, because I see him around folks all the time, how he conducts himself. That man doesn't have a racist bone in his body. He's just as real as they come. He doesn't care who it is. But at the same time, he's being real in this sense, and even though it's unpleasant, he makes a point about the slippery slope, because he's talking about how the conversation's private, you know, and we may not like how he feels, and we may not like his beliefs, but for somebody to be stripped of ownership under that premise, he has a problem with that. And I can't say I blame him, being in the position that he is as one of Sterling's contemporaries, being an owner. But when you take into account, what I would say to Mark Cuban in response to that is, when you take into account the fact that Donald Sterling was never liked by any of these folks, that he's fought with them legally in the court of law, okay, in terms of moving his team from San Diego to Los Angeles and what have you. When you consider the bevy of confrontations from a legal perspective and otherwise that he's had with the very league that he's supposed to be helping to represent, he's bad for business. And anybody that's bad for business ends up finding a way out the door. So why should Donald Sterling be any different? I understand what Mark Cuban's saying about not stripping somebody of ownership. You don't want it to be that easy. But at the same time, when somebody has a history of being problematic to the point where they jeopardize the very significance and credibility of the brand, now you have an issue. And there's nothing wrong with dealing with him severely.
Okay, so after all you just said, your gut feeling, what happens today?
I believe that Adam Silver will announce that Donald Sterling has been suspended indefinitely, and that every avenue is being explored to rid him of ownership of the Los Angeles Clippers. That's my belief.
Will that be enough for you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, back to Mark Cuban. There was another part of that quote we didn't hear. It was somewhat the same, but I want to stress that Mark was saying that if we're taking something that somebody said in the privacy of their home, just to drive this into your head, in the privacy of their home, and we're trying to turn that into something that leads to your being forced to divest your property, to sell your property or give it up in any way, shape, or form, that's not the United States of America. So Mark's going much bigger picture than just the Constitution of the NBA. He's doing the United States Constitution. And I point out to our viewers who don't get this part, it is illegal in the state of California for one person to secretly tape record another person without that other person knowing. So you have that to contend with here in the court of law. But I'm going to roll with our Lester Munson and Stephen A. I've read way too much on this. My eyes are aching now from all that I've read, trying to understand the legal angles here. The only legal eagle that I read was our Lester Munson, who made a strong case that, wait a minute, the Constitution does have one clause, and I'm not going to get specifically into that clause, that is broad enough and maybe vague enough that the owners can say, yes, Mr. Sterling, even though you're on our board of governors, and even though we have looked the other way all these past, 10-odd years, you have become very bad for all of our business. So we can, by majority vote, seek to not get rid of your ownership. We can't make you sell, but we can terminate your franchise. That's where we're heading here. They could threaten to terminate the Clippers. And that would force Donald Sterling to step back and say, well, I can try to fight this in court. Lester's saying he won't have a leg to stand on in court here because of the Constitution of the National Basketball Association and its broad powers. And that in the end, he will realize, do I want to lose everything I have invested here? Everything. It's all gone. They're going to terminate my franchise. Or should I just say, okay, you got me, I'll put it up for the highest bidder. That's what they're hoping will happen. I'm going to go with Lester here, and I'm going to say that's going to be the plan of attack of the other owners. But I don't know if they can pull that off. I think that's what we will hear today. And we definitely will hear that there will be an indefinite suspension. I'm going to remind you, because you're close to this, in the other sport of baseball, remember what happened to your man George Steinbrenner that you loved? Remember, he was suspended for life, and 2 years later, he said, no, I want back in.
Right.
And he petitioned to get back in. And remember, he committed a felony for making an illegal campaign contribution to President Nixon. Remember that?
Yep.
And then he hired a gambler to dig up dirt on Dave Winfield. Remember that? Okay, so he had those two things, those two strikes against him. Not the same as what we're talking about here with Donald Sterling. But still, it was a felony. Sterling hasn't committed a legal felony, but I called it a moral felony.
Sure.
That's how we fit. It's beyond a felony.
He hasn't broken any laws.
He hasn't broken any laws.
He's not in danger of going to jail or anything like that.
But I'm showing you that George Steinbrenner was powerful enough that his lifetime ban only lasted 2 years, and then baseball buckled and said, okay, we give up, you're back.
Well, the NBA could always buckle, but you also have to understand that what George Steinbrenner didn't galvanize a segment of our population against him. He just, did anyone really care that he gave an illegal contribution to the Nixon campaign?
Some
sure
people probably
did, but they didn't. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, when you're going to watch a sports team, it doesn't offend you to watch him because the owner gave an illegal contribution to a presidential candidate. Okay, and then, granted, we didn't like it because I'm a fan of Dave Winfield, always have been, had the luxury and the pleasure of meeting him on several occasions. But at the same time, we remember how we knew Reggie Jackson was Mr. October because of smacking home runs in the World Series. Well, Steinbrenner called Dave Winfield Mr. May because that's when he showed up. He didn't show up in October, so Steinbrenner was disgusted with him. So when he hired the gambler to go at him, he's like, yeah, that's not good, that's bad. That's pretty low, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, you're like, heck, we don't care. We're looking for somebody to hit. That was the attitude.
Okay.
This is different. This is far more serious. This is far more heinous when it comes to the populace at large that comprise the offended party. And as a result, you have to address it with an incredibly strong level of sensitivity. You can't have an owner that is on the record literally talking about how, why would you hang out with black people? Why? For what? What would you do? And all of the other stuff that Donald Sterling said.
Yep.
When you are owning a team in a league that's more than 80% black, that has globalized its brand more successfully than any other sports league in North America, and it's primarily black, that has marketed the black athlete, you can't turn around while doing that, and garnering the support of Madison Avenue, while at the same time having an owner within your brand who looks at them, again, sorry for the engagement and hyperbole, but practically slave labor.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think it's hyperbole.
I think that's what we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
Okay, so bottom line, this is my takeaway. I fear that you're not going to get a satisfying conclusion today. Not satisfying enough, because a lot of people want, figuratively, off with his head. That sort of language and conviction from Adam Silver, and I'm not sure he's able, as the employee of these owners, to give you that today. I hope I'm wrong about that.
Skip, I need to say something to you and Kerry, because I want to make sure I'm on the record to say this, because I must acknowledge to you that if Donald Sterling was in a different position, as egregious as I would find his statements, there's a level of sensitivity that comes with a sense of hopelessness. You work in a 9-to-5 job, as inexcusable as those words were, and plus you'll be punished and excoriated and all of this other stuff. You like to believe that in your heart of hearts as a human being, you believe everybody deserves second chances, etc., etc. In the case of Donald Sterling, what are we asking for here? You're a billionaire. If you sell the team, you'll sell it for at least a $500 million profit, You'll be set for the rest of your life. What we're basically saying is that you don't need to be a part of a brand that brands itself on marketing the very people you denigrate with such ease. That's basically what we're talking here. So the humiliation standpoint in all of this is like, okay, you brought that on yourself, and anybody would deserve that who uttered the stuff that you uttered. But outside of that, it's not like we're asking the guy to never work in life again and to live on the streets and to suffer physically. We're simply saying, you got your money, you're set for life, but since you feel this way about these folks, go away. That's all anybody's saying.
There's no way I would have played in that game, man. No, I couldn't play in that game because, to be honest with you, you know, it's more than basketball. It's bigger than Game 3 or Game 4, Game 5 of a first-round series. And, yeah, that's what you play for, and, you know, you working for that. But to be honest, you know, if it wasn't for, you know, what my grandparents and their parents and their parents went through to make it easy for us to be able to attain these kind of jobs and be successful in life, then I'm probably not here having this kind of success and doing what I'm doing. So I would rather take a stand and my teammates be mad with me than have to face, you know, my grandparents and my parents and people like that when I had an opportunity to do what was right.
Former Clipper guard, now Pistons guard, Chauncey Billups, been on the show before. Very honest about what he would have done if he was still on the team, Stephen A. Your reaction?
Love my boy Chauncey Billups, known him for years. Let me say this for the record. I do not believe him.
Oh.
Not if he were by himself. I do believe he would think like that. I do believe he would want to do that. But it would be very, very difficult for him to go against the wishes of his teammates if his teammates thought otherwise. That's the Chauncey Billups I know. Principled, very strong, a leader personified, and the kind of guy that would have got others to do what he wanted them to do. But if he were unsuccessful and he was standing alone, I don't think that he would have went against his teammates like that. I will tell y'all this, though. Remember that Pistons that won the championship, Skip?
Yes, sir.
Him, Big Ben Wallace,
yeah.
Rasheed Wallace, Richard Hamilton, Tayshaun. Oh, those boys would not have played. I can tell you that. Those are the kind of dudes. Not that Mr. Davidson would have ever done that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you know, he loved Joe Dumars and seemed to have great relationships with a lot of African Americans. Let me be very clear. If something like that had happened in Detroit, Motown, with that team, oh, there's no way. That team or the Bad Boys of the 80s. Oh, no. They wouldn't have played. Not the next game. They would have made some kind of a statement, no doubt about that. And I think that's what Chauncey's alluding to, because the kind of cats that he's been associated with think like him. So, therefore, he's right about the fact that he wouldn't have played because they wouldn't have played. The only thing I'm refuting that he said is that he would stand alone even if his teammates wanted to play. He wouldn't have played. I don't believe that.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. I know Chauncey a little bit and respect him a heck of a lot. And I'm at risk here, again, of coming across without sensitivity, but I'm just trying to be honest. I'm going to remind you that there are a whole lot of people out there right now left with a whole lot of egg on their faces over giving this man, Donald Sterling, a pass for the last 10 years.
Yep.
Because his behavior and his racist beliefs became so very public over those 10 years' time, culminating in a terrific, powerful piece done in ESPN, the magazine, as we discussed yesterday, in 2009, detailing all of the above. Chauncey Billups played for this man in, 2011, 2012, and 2013. And in the big picture, as I look at this, it's hard for me to believe that a lot of people looked the other way or didn't focus hard enough on the man that they were playing for, or in the case of the LA chapter of the NAACP, honoring with Lifetime Achievement Awards. Why did the owners, all the other owners, look the other way? And then finally, back to Chauncey, and now Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, why did they all look the other way? Because it's very difficult for me to believe these players didn't at least hear a little bit of this in just water cooler kind of talk, just locker room talk. Baron Davis was very public in his issues with Donald Sterling. And we go back to the great Elgin Baylor, the long-tenured African-American GM under Donald Sterling, who filed suit against him both for race and age discrimination. Remember what Elgin testified, that Sterling repeatedly expressed a desire to field a team of poor black boys from the South playing for a white coach. This is public knowledge. It's all out there. And you would think within the African-American community in Kerry's hometown of Los Angeles that this would have been simmering, and it would have gotten some legs, and it would have been talked about, and it would have gotten into some social media message board somewhere where people would be aware of what this man stood for, both in the cases of his 2 racial discrimination lawsuits brought against him, which he very publicly settled and admitted some guilt in, and also the sexual harassment that we haven't really gotten deeply into, but he had several sexual harassment cases against him. Bad man. Well known. Well documented. So back to Chauncey, he says, gee, I wouldn't have played. Well, you played for this man for 3 full seasons. Wow, I'm sorry. I have some issue with that. I'm just being honest with you. Well, and for Chris Paul now, maybe it's his agent's fault. Maybe it's Blake's agent's fault. Somebody should have made them aware of signing the dotted line that was presented them by Donald Sterling.
Here's where, Skip Bayless, I'm getting tired of you. I'm getting tired of you having to preface your comments by saying you don't want to come across as insensitive. We do these subjects on this show by and large because of your sensitivities, because of your courage. And that's why I'm proud to be working with you. You don't owe anybody an apology. Stop prefacing your comments like that. Trust me, if you're insensitive, I'll be the first to tell you. I'll be the first to tell you. All right. Kerry and I will beat you to it, Skip. Trust me. We'll beat you to it. Okay? Don't worry about it. We got you.
But this is some thin ice we're on here.
It's thin ice because most people, number one, don't have the platform, and number two, most people don't want the platform to sit opposite side beside somebody like myself so we can gauge where we're coming from. You've afforded us the luxury of doing that, so don't worry about it. We got you. But let me say this. What I would ask you to do about Chauncey Billups is understand, Skip, it's one thing to hear all of these things, to have a sense of someone's sensibilities. It's another thing for it to be smacked in front of your face. Yeah. I use the analogy about somebody, you know they're cheating on you, but it's one thing to know and it's another thing to catch them in the act.
I like that analogy, by the way.
That's right. You know, but the point that I'm trying to make, Skip, is that you out there, you playing ball, you trying to get paid. You've got if you're lucky, you got a 10-year window to make the money in this career that you will never make again in your lifetime. You seize the opportunity to maximize it because it's about you and it's about what you're doing. If Skip, as a black man, the excuse that somebody might be racist, somebody might be a bigot, somebody looks at us as a second-class citizen, somebody doesn't want us to succeed, if that's the excuse not to go about the business of going for yours, none of us would have jobs. Because, Skip, and this is the part where listen, I am incredibly blessed because I'm very proud to work for the network, and you know the bosses personally, the president, the executive VP for ESPN. I am proud to work for John Waldeck. I am proud to work for John Skipper because they're good men. And you see African Americans in position of power, and it's because of that great man John Skipper and what he's done to put him in that position. And George Bodenheimer, you know, when he was the president, and Bob Iger, all these great people. So we're blessed. But we're in the minority, Skip. Because the fact of the matter is, most black folks that walk to work every day are walking into that cesspool. They're walking in knowing somebody looks at them as a second class, or believing that somebody looks at them as a second class citizen. Somebody doesn't want their success for them. They don't have a champion, no pun intended, Kerry. Because we all look for a champion. You look for somebody to lean on, that can lift you up and inspire you. When I give speeches, Skip, I talk to kids. You don't just need a mentor, you need a cheerleader. Yeah. Because a mentor is somebody that's in your chosen profession that can help you because of their expertise. But a cheerleader is somebody that prevents you from falling into an abyss, which you ultimately will encounter at some point, particularly when you're black, because that is the way it goes down. You can't fault any black man that's a basketball player, knowing there's a 10-year window of opportunity to get this money, for going for theirs based on reports that he can deny or sensitivities that he can dismiss or whatever, when you're barely even around him. What you know is he cuts the check. Your check gets cleared twice a month. Yep. You're making this money. You're elevating your quality of life. You're positioning yourself to take care of your family. And that's that. You don't even know about all of this stuff. And even when he was sued with the racial discrimination case against the Department of Justice and had to settle for $2.17 million, what did he say? Oh, I didn't pay a dime. The insurance paid that. They just told me to settle. I didn't do anything wrong. These people are lying. What are you supposed to do? Say, I don't believe you. I'm going to turn away your $10 million? Come on, let's be practical.
Okay. All right, let's be real.
Be honest.
In your heart of hearts, try to be a little more specific. How much of Sterling's past behavior and beliefs do you think Chauncey and Chris Paul, let's just take those two, how much did they know before they signed that dotted line?
Very little. Because what you heard about Sterling, you hear about a lot of bosses. They ain't particularly fond of black folks. You don't hear, now don't get me wrong, you don't hear about racial discrimination cases. Yeah. Okay? But what I'm saying to you, you might have heard something about that, but guess what? When somebody brought up the agents yesterday, well, the agents must have known. Well, the agent's trying to get paid so the agent can get their 4%. And they're 15 to 20% on the marketing side. Mm-hmm. And if you can get in the L.A. market, and I can get you $80 million, $50 million, $100 million, I can get you Kia commercials, I can get you State Farm commercials, I can do X, Y, and Z. Well, even if the agent knows, the agent don't particularly care because the agent is looking at those dollars and is saying, excuse me, this is going to be my percentage of it. So let's be practical about that. And the players themselves, you got your own stuff to be worried about, especially when you're a black man. Because unlike most people, you're looking at it and going like this, man, I better make this money now because I got little to no shot to make it once my career's over.
All right, Skip, correct me if I'm wrong. Are we still, because we had this conversation off camera. So we're, Stephen A., and I know we got to wrap. We're saying Baron Davis didn't give them a heads up. Baron Davis didn't say this is what it was.
Baron Davis told them about how he would spew stuff at Baron Davis while Baron Davis was on the court and how much he despised the man for it. That's enough to turn down $50 million?
Game 5, there's an actual game going on. Warriors at Clippers at the Staples Center. And while their playoff series obviously layered in this controversy, there still is a game to be played tonight. So let's talk about the nuts and bolts of that and who wins. Stephen A., the Clippers come together tonight and pull this off?
I'm rolling with the Clippers. I think the Clippers win Game 5. I think the Warriors win Game 6. And I think we've got a Game 7 back at the Staples Center this weekend. Steph Curry went berserk, played like a superstar in Game 4. Draymond Green is special. His energy, his toughness, his willingness to fight. That shift in the starting lineup with Mark Jackson was a brilliant move on his part. It energized the Golden State Warriors. They came out and they pounced all over the Los Angeles Clippers. But I think that the emotional drain of Sunday, based on everything that had come to light on Saturday and Friday, I think that took a lot out of the Los Angeles Clippers. I don't think there's any denying that. I think it took a lot out of Doc Rivers. But I don't think that happens for Game 5. I think they show up at the Staples Center ready tonight, incredibly focused and ready to handle their business. They understand what's going down. They've had a few days to deal with it. Family members flying into town to be with the players and what have you. I think all of that's incredibly important. I think they answered the bell. And I think they win tonight's game relatively handily, I might add. I'm not saying it's going to be the kind of blowout that took place in Game 2, but I think they pull away in the fourth quarter and win this by about 12.
Man, I hope you're right about that. I don't have the conviction you have. I'll be honest with you, for the first time maybe in the history of this show, I'm going to say I have no idea what to expect tonight, which is why I will be on the edge of my seat at 10:30 Eastern time. You get to do it at 7:30, you lucky dog, you. But
I'll be there.
Yeah. I don't know. The Clippers are 6.5-point favorites at home. I have no idea exactly who will show up to cheer on the Clippers after what we talked about to open the show.
Yeah.
And I have no idea how much those who do show up will feel good about themselves if they scream and yell for their Clippers. I'm not sure about that. Will it be a little muted tonight? The odds are it probably will be a little muted tonight. Will that be a little bit of home court disadvantage for the home team? Maybe a little bit. I like it that Doc Rivers, we're going to talk about his role in all this in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But I like it that Doc said, hey, you guys have had enough on your heads for a while. Just go home. This is yesterday. They did not practice, although J.A. Adonde reported that most of the Clippers, it looked like, came to the facility just to shoot around, be around the fellas, which is great. But he did not make them go through an organized workout yesterday, which I thought was a great idea, just to let it simmer a little bit, let their emotions calm down, and let them regroup and, to your point, refocus for tonight. Remember, Golden State won Game 1 there, then got blown out by 40 in Game 2. Then Clippers win Game 3 by 2 up in Oakland, and then basically get blown out with all the distractions Game 4. So the series has been a roller coaster ride already, and I don't know which way the roller coaster is going to go. I'll go with you. You are Stephen A. Smith, so I'm going to go with your gut feeling. Okay. I'll go Clippers because I am rooting for the Clippers tonight.
They'll handle their business. I mean,
okay.
You know, listen, the fact is that they're a superior team talent-wise. I respect the Golden State Warriors, respect the hell out of them. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson is something special to behold, and Draymond Green, like I said, and Jermaine O'Neal deserves a lot of credit.
He does.
Not just because of his 18 years, but was in the starting lineup, but went to the coach and let him know, yo, listen, it's all right to start somebody else. Draymond will give us a lot of energy and stuff like that, just willing to do whatever it takes in order for the team to win. They're all to be respected. I wish Andrew Bogut wasn't bogus and found a way to be in the lineup for some reason. It doesn't happen.
Well, he's hurt. You got to give him some break. You know.
Well, say what?
He's hurt.
Well, yeah, he's hurt, but he's always getting hurt at the wrong daggone time, man. I mean, 7 foot, if he was there, and, I mean, throwing a big body on Blake Griffin, who knows?
That would help.
Here's the thing. You're not holding DeAndre Jordan to 0 points and 6 rebounds in Game 5 at the Staples Center tonight. It's one thing to be disgusted and distracted. It's another thing to be disgusted and focused. Tonight, they're disgusted and focused. And the kind of game that you saw Sunday will not be the case, and we will get back to this series being about basketball at some point tonight and for the rest of the series.
Okay, the only caveat I would add is that if they let Steph handle his business tonight, as in make 7 threes, we will have a different conversation tomorrow.
I just think that even if Steph gets off, somebody else won't. Somehow, some way, the Clippers are going to find a way to impose their will. They're just too big for these guys, and on their home court, I think you see them take advantage of that.
Stephen A., it says here in the script that the Spurs avoided an epic collapse. Is that true?
I wouldn't say epic. I mean, I consider Indiana to be an epic collapse, but it would have been bad. It would have been epic in the heart of Skip Bayless. Because we understand if they lose in warm-ups, he's got a problem.
Hello.
Hey, my heart has about 7 holes in it right now from last night.
It
was epic already.
It was already epic.
I was trying every unjinx in the history of the world last night.
Did this feel like a must-win?
Oh, for sure. For sure. We didn't want to go 3-1 down. It was a really tough loss. It really hurt. So this one was huge for us. I'm very glad we get it done.
The Spurs snapped their 4-game road playoff losing streak last night as they won Game 4 and tied up the series in Dallas. Ginobili scored a game-high of 23 points, while Dirk Nowitzki struggled, scoring less than 20 points for the 4th straight game. That's okay, because you were mentioning someone's name, Skip Bayless. Was that Manu?
Manu.
Okay, so here's the question, Stephen A. Here's the question. Skip Bayless, are your Spurs back in control?
Carry champion. Stephen A. Smith, no, they are not. In fact, I went to bed last night, about 1 a.m. Eastern Time, thinking that it felt like the Dallas Mavericks were still in control of this series, even though we head back to San Antonio, Texas for Game 5 on Wednesday night. My Spurs, in the second half, Stephen A. Smith blew a 20-point lead. My Spurs managed to survive while shooting 4 for 17 in the fourth quarter. And my Spurs got incredibly lucky. I was going to say fortunate. I'll go to lucky. When ex-Spur with the big chip on his shoulder, Dwan Blair, got kicked out for kicking Tiago Splitter right in the head with 3:08 left, and Dallas up a point, sparked by the run of Dwan Blair. And suddenly he was out. They get to shoot a technical free throw. Manu made a few of his free throws. He missed a few, too. He giveth, he taketh. And yet, Stephen A., I got to tell you, in Game 2 back in Dallas, after my Spurs had beaten the arch-rival Mavericks 10 straight times, they recreated a monster. This team can score with anybody in the NBA. I believe that right now, at the level Dallas is playing, Dallas could win the East. Right now, if you put Dallas in the Eastern Conference bracket, I flat out believe they'd win it. They'd beat Miami or whoever's left and go to the finals, East versus West, if you will, because that 8 seed is playing like a 2 or 3 seed in the West right now. And my Spurs are facing a major identity crisis because the man who's driven all these championships, the point guard Tony Parker, has lost it. I said it before the series started, but he's become the man of 10,000 dribbles. I don't know what's happened to him. He's not himself. He dribbles the air out of the ball, tries to play pick and roll with Tim Duncan, leaves everybody else out. And Manu Ginobili keeps saving the day, Stephen A. Smith, because he comes off the bench and electrifies this team and saves it from Tony Parker. That's a big issue right now.
Well, let's make sure to recognize that Monte Ellis can ball. Can't forget him.
Thank you.
Calderon and these boys, they can play.
Can they?
Devin Harris has some quickness.
Hey.
Dirk Nowitzki's a veteran.
Hey.
And you got a 3-headed monster at the center position with one of the most exceptional coaches in this game, and it just needs to be said, his name is Rick Carlisle.
Thank you.
So you've got all of that to be worried about, but at the same time, down 2-1, you're back against the wall, knowing you can ill afford a 3-1 deficit, to go into Dallas and to beat them. Remember, I picked San Antonio to win this series in 6 games. That's why.
Did you? I thought you said 5. I could be wrong. You didn't say 5?
No, I said 6.
Okay, so did I.
I said 6. I said 6. There's no way I got Rick Carlisle winning just 1 game in a playoff series against San Antonio. But what I'm saying to you is that in the end, I think that San Antonio finds a way because of Tim Duncan, finds a way because of Manu, finds a way because of Kawhi Leonard. But more importantly, Skip, finds a way because they want Miami that bad. Because they want to get back to claim.
I agree, but it's a long ways to Miami.
They just listen, when the Texas teams are going against one another, it changes everything.
Yeah.
It changes the dynamics of everything.
It's
and that's what's going on here.
Okay, you better be right.
You better be right, Stephen A. And by the way, I met a young lady last night who told me to tell you you didn't give Vince Carter props. She was mad. She wanted me to let you know.
You know, let me say this. Vince Carter deserves it. That was a big-time shot. Mm-hmm. I like Vince Carter, who's an incredibly nice person, I'd like to add. But let me tell y'all something. When I look at Vince Carter, I just can't help but be disappointed because every time I look at him, I saw Kobe. I saw the guy that could have been Kobe, that could have been one of those elite superstars in this game for all of these years. And I think he settled because that fire wasn't in his belly on the level that you customarily see it in superstars. I know Vince could play. He's a great guy. I root for him. I was happy for him. But, my God, with that talent that he has, I just expected more from him over a longer period of time in his career. And the only excuse is he didn't seem to want it bad enough. He seemed okay. Losing didn't hurt enough is what I mean.
Okay.
It didn't hurt enough, it seems.
That's the big picture. In the little picture, when I now look at Vince Carter, I can't help but remember that he traveled before he made that big 3 that won the game the other day. But I let it go. I don't want to see the video. Stop and go to the next question. I'm done with that. But he traveled. He traveled.
Oh, please.
I'm sorry. He traveled.
He traveled.
Next question.
He didn't tell Manu to jump and fly by him. You know, he waited.
Yeah, he waited,
why.
his feet shuffled, and he made it. It was a great shot.
It's always a 3. Meanwhile, the top seed in the East is on the brink of elimination. The Pacers lost to the Hawks in Game 5 last night and were even booed by their own fans at home during the first half. Mike Scott, Shelton Mack, who both started the game on the bench, led the Hawks to a 107-97 victory. Wow. Stephen A., you surprised by this?
I'm shocked.
Okay.
Stunned. It's unbelievable to me. I don't even recognize this team. Roy Hibbert, he has to go see a psychologist. Seriously, he's got to sit down and get his mind right. Something happened to him. This is not a basketball issue. Something happened to him. He's 7'2". He's on the court. He's 7'2". He doesn't score a point. He doesn't grab a rebound. He in 12 minutes. I mean, Frank Vogel, he said, enough of this. I can't play this man anymore. I don't know what's going on. It makes no sense. I can't explain it. But that was bad enough. But to be down by more than 20 in the first quarter, to be down by 30 at one point on your home turf after winning Game 4 in Atlanta, Skip Bayless, the Atlanta Hawks are winning Game 6. This series, in my opinion, is over. Could be wrong, but I doubt it. This team is a shell of itself. I cannot believe what I have been seeing. Look at Larry Bird. Have you ever seen Larry Bird this demonstrative?
No.
I mean, you see him,
Ever.
He's covering his face. He can't believe it. He can't believe it, and neither can I. There is no basketball aficionado on the planet that could have predicted this epic collapse taking place in Indianapolis. I read all the reporters out there. They're absolutely on the money. The radio hosts that you're listening to, they're absolutely on the money. Everybody, they are looking at a collapse of epic proportions because there's no way to explain it. Frank Vogel didn't forget how to coach. Okay? Brian Shaw, no matter how much of an impact he had as the lead and assistant, now that Nate McMillan is there instead of him, don't tell me it's that big of an impact. All of a sudden, George Hill, one game he looks like he can get the job done. Another day he looks like he should be a bench rider.
Yeah.
Roy Hibbert, good Lord, I'm trying to be nice. Skip Bayless. Roy Hibbert looks worse than Kwame Brown.
Oh, boy.
That's a
I can't
mouthful.
believe that I'm saying that. Roy, I can't believe I'm saying that. I don't know what to say. I cannot believe. But Kwame Brown had the disadvantage of small hands, small feet.
Yeah.
Coming out of high school, wasn't taught the game.
Yeah.
He's got all of these excuses. Roy Hibbert, 7'2", big hands, big feet, went to Georgetown, had a couple of post moves that appeared at least last year in the playoffs.
It sure did.
Okay? Was one of the runner-up for defensive player of the year. All of a sudden, he can't seem to do anything, right? I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. I can't believe what I'm seeing. And I hate it. I hate saying that because I like him so much, man, but it just hurts to watch these guys. It's over, Skip. Atlanta's not losing 2 games on their home court to this team. And if Atlanta loses this Game 6 on their home turf, I have nothing to say positive about Atlanta because there's no excuse to lose to this team 2 times.
That's true.
On your home court the way they've been looking.
Yeah. So you're saying that Roy Hibbert has now replaced Kwame Brown as your symbol of ineptitude in the NBA, right?
As a big man?
Yeah. That's what you're saying.
Oh, boy.
And
yeah, man.
Yeah.
I can't. What am I going to say?
Nothing.
I can't believe it.
Okay.
I can't believe what I'm seeing.
Okay. I can believe it because we saw it down the stretch in the regular season. We saw it early in this series. They are who they have become. And I don't think they're going to snap out of it. I'm with you. Atlanta's going to win in Atlanta and finish them off and put them out of their misery. Something is internally very wrong with this basketball team that for much of the year was the best defensive team in the NBA. Something happened internally. I think Tim Legler's been saying it will come out postseason. It has to.
It has to.
And my only theory on Roy Hibbert, to give him a little bit of a break here, I've read a couple of reports that suggest that maybe the elbow shot that he took from LeBron as LeBron was driving the ball in the game in Indiana, I think you were there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So it was official. But remember, LeBron cold-cocked him, knocked him out. He was jelly-kneed. You know, he couldn't even get up. And some people are saying it's post-concussion syndrome, that he never quite recovered from the concussion he received from LeBron's shot to the jaw. So I don't know.
Skip, when you get a shot to the jaw, even if you have a concussion, it doesn't prevent you from punching. It just limits your ability to absorb a punch.
Yeah.
The way you once did. That's it. In the case of Roy Hibbert, we talking about multiple games in a row in the single-digit category in points and rebounds. We're talking about games where no block shots have occurred. We are sitting here today talking about a game, Skip, in which a 7'2" dude. Basically, Skip, let me put it to you this way. If he stands up and doesn't even raise his hands, he's only 3 feet from the rim. So if he raises his hand, Skip, he's about an inch from the rim.
He is.
And can't score?
Can't score, can't get a rebound.
And can't get a rebound? No. There's something wrong. Psychologically, something has happened.
Yep.
Now, I don't know what it is, but Lord, it's bad.
And we can't wait to find out. Postseason, obviously, for them coming up soon.
What makes the Indy 500 the greatest spectacle in racing?
Back home again.
We are green. Everyone in the grandstands are on their feet.
And now, winner of the
Indianapolis 500, my friend. The Indianapolis 500, Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on ABC.
I don't know one way or the other, but I do know, I believe he said those things, but I still want to make sure it hasn't been doctored. But yes is the answer. And as far as believing those things, I heard what he said, and so until someone tells me differently, you usually listen to what people say. And, I haven't given him his due process. I haven't given him an opportunity to explain himself. And quite honestly, right now, I don't want him to or want him to me. So I'll wait for that further judgment. I was asked, do I need to talk with Donald, and I passed, quite honestly. I don't think right now is the time or the place, for me at least. And so I just took a pass.
All right, consider that. Right now is not the time nor the place. Doc said, however, he was not happy with how he prepared his team for the game in Golden State. Doc didn't approve of the silent protest, but said he wanted the players to express themselves. Let's consider all of that, and we ask, is Doc a leader? And obviously, as a leader, how has he handled this situation, Stephen A.?
Well, first of all, Doc Rivers is an exceptional leader. He always has been. That's what makes him one of the great coaches in this game. He's somebody that I've known for many years, have an incredible level of respect and admiration for. And the players, now that they've gotten to know him, there's a reason that they voted unanimously for him to be their voice, because of the respect and the trust that they have in him. If you are a player and you're playing for Doc Rivers, it's an honor. It's just that simple. And most of them know that. And that's just how it goes. And so, in terms of how he's handled this situation, I don't think he could have done any better. He's had to draw the line in the sand in terms of making sure to do everything he could exhaustively to keep the focus on basketball as the coach and basically the head of basketball operations for this team, while at the same time making sure that the line was drawn in the sand as it pertains to him and his players being black men being talked about like this by their boss. and how offensive those comments were, how degrading it is, how difficult it has made life for them. I don't think anybody could have done a better job. I think every coach out there would have been trying to do what Doc Rivers is doing. And for this particular issue, I don't think any coach in the NBA would disagree with what I'm about to say. And that is, there is no coach better equipped to handle this situation in the NBA than the man handling right now in Doc Rivers.
I am very with you on this one. I have often said on this show, Doc Rivers is the best all-around coach in pro basketball. I'm talking about pregame X's and O's, in-game strategy, and post-game big picture motivation and leadership. There's nobody better in all those facets combined. And I'm with you. I wanted to say the same thing you just said. I could not have handpicked a coach to handle as difficult a situation as I think any coach in the history of this league has ever tried to handle on a spur of a big game moment than I would have picked Doc Rivers. He's the right man, right place, right task. And this is a task. It was interesting. It sounded like he stepped away on Saturday night and gave his players the ability to make their own choice because it impacted them in different ways than it impacted Doc. And I love that, and I respected that. But he did say after the game, I wasn't thrilled with what they chose, but I let them do that because they needed to have that ability. And then I said earlier in the show, I loved it yesterday. He didn't put pedal to metal and say, we got to lock back in here. We got to practice hard. Nah. He said, you guys have had enough mentally. You just need a break. You need to go back to your families, your friends. Just get away from this for a while. And as I pointed out, Jay Adonde was there outside the practice facility saying, I think everybody's here. I think they all came in to shoot, just be around each other. So that all felt good to me, and it built toward your conclusion that they will take care of and handle their business tonight. That all we should reflect back on Doc. So he's done the best he could possibly do to this moment, and it might get worse. It might get tougher, I should say, depending on what happens with whatever boycott there is tonight. He had that line the other night. Usually we go home to a safe haven. It might not feel quite like a safe haven tonight. It might be volatile. It might feel chaotic. It might be different. So Doc will be tested again, and I'm sure he will stare and face down that test.
Well, he will handle it, but I think what we all have to be careful about is not viewing this guy, looking at this guy as if he's somebody, you know, that's at fault here in some capacity. You know, there are some people that just sound like flaming idiots. They're acting as if this guy is supposed to go out there and intentionally throw the game or something. You know, I'm just talking about the way they're coming at Doc Rivers in terms of their cynicism, the questions, or whatever the case may be. Look, the man has been working all year long to try and win a championship.
Yes.
If you're gonna play the game, what the hell are you playing for? You're gonna play or you're not. It's almost like on a far less significant level. It's almost like the Davion Clowney. When people were questioning, what did he give you because he was scared he was going to get hurt? You had others saying, if you're going to play, play.
Yep.
If you're not, don't play. Well, the same principle here for obviously a far more significant reason. You're either going to play or you're not. And if you're going to play, you got to go for it. It's just that simple.
Okay, and bottom line, I really appreciated the fact that Doc said he took a pass on talking to Donald Sterling because it sends a message of, no. I'm not going to talk to that man.
You can't explain that away.
Yeah.
You can't explain that away.
Yeah.
And for that stuff to come out your mouth when you know I'm here coaching and running your basketball franchise, and these players are playing for you? No.
Yeah.
Doc heard enough.
Yeah.
That was it.
For me, Jim, I honestly don't even want to answer that question because I don't know. I just, listen, this just happened. My focus right now is so much on everything else and so little on me right now, and I want to, if I can, keep it that way. I don't want to be part of this story where if you know what I'm saying. So we'll just wait and see.
The question that was asked to Doc Rivers was, will he return to the franchise in the coming season? Doc, again, as you heard, said he didn't necessarily want to answer that question. He didn't want to make it about him. Doc's future still up in the air. But Stephen A. will ask you to project. What do you think he'll do?
If Donald Sterling is still the owner of this team next season, and the NBA doesn't show a strong willingness to do something to absolve that scenario, I believe Doc Rivers leaves the Clippers. That's not on inside information or anything like that. That's just based on the Doc Rivers I know. Doc Rivers can get a job tomorrow. Doc Rivers can get a job paying him the $7 million he's getting paid, or close to it, tomorrow. It's Doc Rivers. And if Doc Rivers has an opportunity, if it was somebody that didn't have that opportunity, that would be different. I don't think Doc Rivers would want to leave these players. I think if he were to stay, it would be because of his loyalty to the players, because that's how it was with KG and Paul Pierce and those boys. That's how it's going to be with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and this crew. And plus, Doc Rivers believes he can win championships with this crew. But I think that to some degree, for lack of a better phrase, Skip, his manhood as a black man has been challenged in this scenario. And that's why I think you see him being the way that he is, acknowledging that he doesn't know what's going to happen, acknowledging that he doesn't know if he'll be back, if he'll stay on, acknowledging he doesn't know if the fans will show up or not, just throwing out these little nuggets of information to give you some insight into his thinking. He understands the ire. He understands the fury. He understands everything that comes with it. He's offended by this stuff deeply. And to ask him to stay on and work for a man that has expressed what Donald Sterling has expressed, it's one thing to just do it now after you worked all season for this goal and you're in the playoffs and you're in the midst of a championship. It's another thing, once the season is over, to ask this dude, training camps and the day-to-day, coming into work every day. Even though Donald Sterling is hands-off and he really doesn't have to deal with Donald Sterling, it's really a very, very difficult pill to swallow. And the Doc Rivers I know might end up saying, you know what, I'm out, if the NBA doesn't do something about Sterling.
Okay, you raised some powerful points that raise some powerful questions. I am with you. I don't know Doc except from a distance, but I hear a lot about him through you and through many people I know around the league, and I am with you. His manhood got challenged as a black man. I'm with you. And I think he would be fully capable of taking that stand. And as our coach Herman Edwards sat here and said yesterday, some money is not good money. Meaning, yeah, Doc's got a sweet deal. He's got 2 more years left at $7 million a year. 3 years, $21 million. You pointed out yesterday, he loves L.A., loves his golf, has golf right there at his fingertips, Southern California, but some money, not good money. Now, what would the NBA allow? Because if he walks away, would he be allowed to take $7 million from the next team that wanted him and they would line up for Doc Rivers? I don't know, because are you going to open that Pandora's box, NBA? Bylaws, contracts, 3 years he signed for, $21 million.
Well,
okay, I don't know. I don't know. What could he argue?
Well,
because if they open that Pandora's box, then some other coach over here would say, you know, I found this out about my owner. He's a really bad guy, and I got to get out of this. Please let me out of my deal. I know it's not as dire circumstances as this.
That's fair,
yeah.
Skip. But what I'm saying to you is we're asking the question under the premise that he would have the freedom to do those things. I am in no way implying that Doc Rivers is going to walk away from Los Angeles, walk away from $7 million a year, have absolutely nothing, nowhere to go because he's still under contract. I'm not implying that. I'm saying, assuming that the scenario from a legalese standpoint, that the scenario is ideal and he has the freedom to do what he wants, I think that if he had that choice, then he would elect to leave.
Okay, I got it.
The alternative was to work for Donald Sterling.
Okay, so big picture. Let's do the hypothetical that we enter next season. We get to October, November, and it appears that Donald Sterling is still indefinitely suspended, but still owns the Los Angeles Clippers and operates the Clippers, as far as we know from a financial standpoint. He just can't be around the Clippers. And let's just do the hypothetical. Let's say that it's such a distraction that the Clippers flame out and lose this series to Golden State. And everybody's back, and Chris Paul and Blake and DeAndre, all of them say, Doc, we need you. We have unfinished business. We let this get to us, and we're devastated because we shouldn't have. We let him win twice here because we lost on the floor, too, as well as in the big picture. So what do you do if you're Doc? Do you go back and help your guys that believe in you and need you?
Well, you may elect to do that because they're stuck. But, Skip, if they're stuck, he's stuck because he's under contract just like they are. So it's not like the league is going to absolve him from his contractual obligations but tell the players you're stuck.
Yeah.
It's going to, if he's got the freedom to leave, they're going to have it too. And we don't see that as a plausible scenario. But assuming that the possibility arises, I'm simply speaking to the character of the man. Doc Rivers is stung by this. It's embarrassing. It's hurtful. It's what would qualify as a hostile working environment. If you know that the owner feels this way based on what he expressed, and you have an obligation to work for him, and there's nowhere you can go, it validates and authenticates Donald Sterling's whole mentality, of ownership. Yeah, I got y'all. Where y'all going?
Money.
Remember the cars, the house. Would they have that if it were not for me?
Yep.
Remember, that's what he said. So that's what we're talking about here.
There's a clause that allows the owners to terminate a franchise of a potential owner. It requires a 3/4 vote of the Board of Governors, and the Board of Governors is all the owners, all 30 of them. And as I was poring over that chapter of the Constitution yesterday, there is a couple of phrases in there that if Adam Silver wanted to be aggressive and wanted to push as hard as he could use those to begin the process of terminating the franchise. And I think that if he were to initiate that process with support of the owners, then Donald Sterling would realize that the end is near and he should start looking for a buyer to avoid letting that process come to an end. He could sell for the value of the team instead of having the owners just come in and snatch everything away.
All right, so there is a 2 p.m. Press conference today, Eastern Standard Time, with Commissioner Adam Silver. That is when we can gain more clarity on what will happen in this particular case. Also, as you heard Munson talk about, whether or not the league can terminate Sterling's franchise ownership. These are all things to be considered, and perhaps again today at 2 p.m. Eastern, there's a press conference that can help us out with that. Stephen A., I'll start with you first. How do you see this all playing out?
Well, like I said, once Lester Munson went on Mike and Mike this morning and articulated that not only can the league deliver a $1 million fine, they can deliver a fine of up to $2.5 million. They can suspend an owner indefinitely. They can confiscate draft picks from the Clippers. The level of latitude that we all thought Commissioner Adam Silver had at his disposal, it's significantly more than we thought. And because of it, the NBA players, the Players Association, Doc Rivers, and myself, and any black man that's familiar with this case, we believe that the maximum penalty allowed by the NBA should be immediately implemented. It's just that simple. Whatever the worst case scenario is, Donald Sterling should receive. That's it. Ain't that damn complicated. It's $2.5 million fine, indefinite suspension, forced to sell the team, to surrender the team. Absolutely. You don't have a right to confiscate his profits. He bought the team for about $15 million, going to make about $600 million. Okay, we don't want you as a part of this fraternity. If there is a way for them to pull it off, that is what we should expect to hear from them. Based on what Lester Munson articulated is in the NBA constitutional bylaws. Again, you're not asking or anticipating or expecting the NBA to go beyond what they can do. I'm simply saying whatever they can do, Skip, whatever is plausible, is what we should expect to hear from Adam Silver.
I am heartened by everything I just heard from Lester Munson, and I read it first yesterday about 4:30 on ESPN.com. And up to that point, Stephen A., and this is all way over my head, I'm the first to admit, I had read so many analysts basically saying, no way out of this. You cannot oust Donald Sterling. You can suspend him, hopefully indefinitely. You might even attempt to impose a lifetime ban, but you cannot take his team away from him, or so I read, until Lester said, no, there might be a way out of this. Go, Lester, go. I'm rolling with Lester, our man on ESPN.com. Let me throw one other angle at you that appears to be in play here, and I'm curious what you think about it. The estranged wife, Shelley, of Donald Sterling, made a statement yesterday that appeared to distance herself from Donald in an attempt to align herself with her son-in-law, who is the director of basketball operations for the Clippers, so that she could take over control of the team. Now, I'm not sure the other owners would roll with that, because
they shouldn't.
The family still has the cloud over them, and she was involved to some degree in the real estate businesses that were sued for race discrimination. So again, the whole family has to deal with that cloud going forward. So I would think the other owners would say no to this, but it appears that play will be made by Shelley, the estranged wife.
Well, Doc Rivers has a good relationship with the son-in-law. You know, the wife's got her own issues with her husband. Very, very bizarre relationship, and I'll just leave it at that. That's their personal business. But some of the stuff you hear that's going on out here in L.A. with these two, there's something special, boy. It put reality TV to shame. Let's just leave it at that. But with all of that being said, understand what the major goal is here. It's to completely eradicate Donald Sterling's association with the NBA brand. Period. Indefinitely suspending him doesn't pull that off.
Nope.
Giving day-to-day operations to somebody who, by the way, already has it doesn't do much.
No.
If it's his team and he still directly profits off the success that they breed, you haven't accomplished the goal. Donald Sterling doesn't have much to do with the team now. Doc Rivers, from what I'm told by my sources, has seen Donald Sterling maybe 2 or 3 times this entire year. They don't talk. Oh, hey, he ain't in the office every day. It's not that kind of relationship. So the point that I'm trying to make to you, the person that you're dealing with is Eric Miller. He already has control of this franchise.
Yep.
So why is Donald Sterling important today? He's important today because he's the owner. He is the guy that ultimately cuts the check that everybody answers to. That has to change. If that doesn't change, whatever they come up with is unacceptable if it's within their power to do more.
Okay.
Now, if it is not in their power to do more, we have to get over that.
Okay.
And
so
the fans and corporate sponsors
I'm with you.
Have to send a message.
Okay, so to sum this up, it sounds like via Lester Munson that there is a way, via the Constitution of the NBA, that the other owners can vote to terminate the franchise. I mean, just abolish the Clippers franchise, and that would be threat enough to Donald Sterling that he would cease and desist and say, I've got to sell.
The other thing Lester pointed out that we have an obligation to mention is that Donald Sterling's a master in the courtroom.
Yeah.
But in this particular instance, he wouldn't have the courts to lean on.
No.
It would go to arbitration.
Yeah.
And in arbitration, he'd likely lose. So the threat of doing that to him can ultimately provoke him to surrender the team because he doesn't have the court of law to make his case like he has in the past. This would be an arbitrary issue. So, so it's possible, but again, all anybody expects to see from Adam Silver in the NBA today is that you've done all you could from an exhaustive measuring perspective to bring the hammer down on this man. There better not be wiggle room where we're looking at you and saying, you could have done this, you could have done this, you could have done that, and you didn't. You got to make sure that whatever you could do, you did do. I mean, my God, Skip, the great Larry King, host for Larry King Live for CNN for all of those years, was interviewed the other day. He's out here in Hollywood all the time. That's where he lives, okay? Or in Cali, rather, all right? And he's sitting up there talking, and you know what he said? He said, we've seen Donald Sterling at parties. He said, we've been at many events together. I wouldn't say he has friends.
Oh.
No one likes him.
Chris, do you have an expectation for what kind of a home court you're going to have? I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening, but just on the court, do you have an expectation for what kind of home court will be?
I'd be lying if I was to say I wasn't nervous, about what it's going to be like, because our fans have been amazing all season long, and obviously I hope that it'll be the same, but, you just never know. They've been amazing, and we wouldn't be where we are without them, but it's tough.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is our final take. Skip Bayless, what do you expect to see tonight?
Stephen A., I don't know what to expect, so I'm going to tell you what I hope to see. I hope that every Clippers fan with a ticket uses that ticket tonight and shows up wearing black out of protest if he or she chooses to wear black out of protest, and that they then proceed to turn that building, Staples Center, into the loudest it has ever been for a basketball game in its history, and that the Clippers win Game 5 as they won Game 2 by 40 points.
My hope is that the other playoff teams imitate what the Miami Heat did last night in support of the Clippers and in speaking out vehemently and collectively against Donald Sterling. I hope the fans show up and join them in doing so. Fans packing inside the arena, fans protesting outside of the arena. And I hope they do so while celebrating the players and celebrating the league's decision to get rid of Donald Sterling, because that's what we're hoping to hear from Adam Silver at 2 o'clock this afternoon.
So you're okay if there's no boycott tonight, given what's said at the press conference at 2 o'clock?
Absolutely correct.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can catch First Take Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on ESPN2.
The next big thing, the next new kid, the next overnight sensation, the next rookie, one to watch, the next Hall of Famer, the next intimidator, the next six-time, the next king. Next. Who's next? Let's find out. Names are made here. The History 300 at Charlotte, Saturday at 2:30 Eastern on ABC.